They want to play. We want them to play. What's the problem? Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, with our Sunday night call-in show. If you're calling right now, back off. Back off. Let me introduce the show. Let me turn this down. Let's not ruin the show right out of the gate, people. Thank you. Okay. We will get to the calls very soon. I appreciate your eagerness to talk college football with the voice of college football right here. Thank you so much for joining. We've got 10 quickly on the line, and it looks, based on the live chat, to have many more than that. 10 o'clock Eastern time is our aim each and every Sunday night. Welcome in. Much to discuss. And hopefully in future weeks there will be much to discuss, because maybe there's going to be a lot to discuss in the next few days and then not much to discuss after that. Hopefully, what I consider to be the side of wisdom, with caution, but the side of wisdom, the side of free market enterprise, will win out, and we will see college football here in 2020. Thank you so much, somebody, for the super chat contribution, and we'll get to that in just a second. Yes, I will take your calls, but let's set up what's going on right now in college football first. There's a hashtag that's out there, we want to play. We want to play, and I believe that was initiated by one Trevor Lawrence. And if you're new to college football, he would be the quarterback for the Clemson Tigers, who has led them to 2 national championship games and 1 ring, and has a 25-1 record as a career starter. Yes, Trevor Lawrence, who may well end up being, and most likely, the #1 selection in the NFL draft. He has come out to say, hey, this is the deal. We're competitors, we're football players, we understand the health risks and concerns here. We're taking them seriously. We understand the precautions that need to be taken. We have confidence in the health and safety guidelines that have been set up, and we want to play. Now, of course, Trevor Lawrence can't speak for everyone, but he has started a movement to basically gauge and help unify the players to express that they want to play. We know that there have been a number of players who have chosen to opt out. That is certainly their right, and certainly beyond their right, it is certainly their obligation of sorts, depending on their family situation and what they deem to be the health risks for themselves and their families. Okay, we're going to review this situation and what the battle is going on. There is a battle going on, and we will see how this plays out and which side wins, because I think it's a pretty evenly waged battle right now between play and don't play, and the pros and cons for each. Some of them are obvious, some of them maybe not so much obvious. Whomever was trying to call me earlier, go ahead and call 860-325-3687. 860-325-3687. There is the number. And we will lay out and define what I consider to be the battle here between, again, play or don't play. Okay, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's RC from Miami, Florida calling.
Hey, RC, how you doing?
Oh, doing great. Just wanted to call in and bring up some points that we had talked about way back in April. And remember, we had a pretty lengthy conversation on the topic of this being a litigious society and how we should follow the lead of the Ivies. If you remember way back in March, they were the first conference to say, hey, we're done. Well before anyone else had really made any decision, any long-term decision, any short-term decision, they were the very first. And I mentioned to you back then, the only type of sports body that would be able to survive dealing with this epidemic and the impact of it would be a pro sports body. In other words, the players have representation, they have a collective bargaining agreement, they have a contract, they have things set in place to protect the owner and the player, or the owner and the players, rather. And in college athletics, you don't have that. So this being the litigious society that we live in, there was no way, and I'm really surprised that we even got to this stage, why the kids are even practicing, why they ever went back. Listen, an epidemic is an epidemic, and there is no vaccine available right now. There might be one in the foreseeable future, but even then, we don't know how it's going to impact people. We're in the 5th or 6th month of an epidemic here in the States. I think it's the 9th month overall in the world that we've had this epidemic. So there's so much that we don't know. With that in mind, we talked about way back in April, Mark, that colleges, universities have to protect themselves. And athletics does bring in major revenue, and it provides them operating revenue for things other than athletics. And we're well aware of that. It's recruiting for the general student body. It's very impactful on many different venues. But the main thing was you've got to protect those students. And many people tonight are talking about, well, it's okay for Johnny to go take economics, be in economics class, but he can't play football. Here's the thing, which you'll start seeing this happen in the next couple of weeks. Several colleges and universities will start saying, hey, you kids need to go home. Why? Because all the money they need for the operating year will already be there. In other words, you can't be in the 3rd week of class and not have paid for your dorm, for your books, your fees, all the money up front. That's enough money to give all these institutions of higher education operating funds for this upcoming year. And that's what many schools haven't closed down yet. It's not about, hey, we've got this under control, we have the proper measures. No, it's about money. Everything's about money. And for some reason, we ignore this major component that impacts and runs our entire world. So to say that I'm surprised that it's happening this late, I was, because I was kind of drinking the Kool-Aid thinking, you know what, they're just going to roll the dice and see what happens. And at this stage, I don't know why we're surprised this is happening. If we were looking at this from an unbiased perspective, we know the component of litigation it can destroy a school in 1 or 2 cases. 3 kids go ahead and get sick, their families get sick, 4 or 5 people die, and you're done. So I don't understand how we haven't really understood the big picture here, Mark, and hopefully you can elaborate on that.
Well, what I'm going to elaborate on is you bring up some great points, and you bring up a lot that has not been stated much in a lot of areas, because I think the demise of this season, if it does come, and it's looking by the day that the probabilities are increasing by the day, that it has more to do with, yes, the fear of litigation, and it does the actual, we have focused on the health and safety, which of course that's what should be the focus, but beyond that, it's the litigation being the next step. So I don't believe, and I am no expert on this situation, but I do watch the news every day. I do take in varieties of sources, knowing that there is political persuasion involved in various sources. So I take it in from a different sources and different angles to put these numbers together to see what actually the risk to the players would be. And I think I believe, based on the numbers I've seen and various breakdowns of numbers, that the risk to the players is just so incredibly minimal. I think it's worse. I believe that it's worth playing. Yes, go ahead.
Control the environment like the NBA has done, though, Mark, and you can't do that on a college campus. The example that the University of Louisville had last week, that's going to happen 10 times, 1,000 times over in a given academic year at any academic institution regarding their athletic kids. So it's going to spread. That's just a microcosm of the potential for impact. And it happened now in the summer. So imagine when the school is fully open. I mean, when 10, 12 kids get it, 3 kids die, it's too late to close. It's not a problem until it's a problem. So regardless of what we want to accept, whether it's politicized or not, this is real. And it's not going away.
Well, of course it's real, but it's real. It's more real for different age classifications. So somebody needs to show me this, and I've seen the statistics, so nobody needs to show me, but if they could break it down even more in regards to the threat for this age classification. So for example, in California, we've seen a shutdown of schools. That's what's being proposed, and that apparently is what's going to be implemented this fall. And we have nobody in 42 million people under the age of, I think it's in the 20s in the entire state that have passed away. And we've got several countries that have gone to school, other countries, and they're seeing where their numbers aren't affected by school participation.
I think those countries have also did a much better job of shutting down things for a longer period of time and pretty much getting the virus under control for the most part. And we know we didn't do that. But in Florida here, we've had 5 kids under the age of 20 pass away. We've got 3 or 4 kids that have come up with the Kawasaki disease as a byproduct of being infected. So we don't know enough yet. And it's okay for us to go with our love and our passion, but we don't know enough.
Well, I'm not going with love.
A year from now,
well, certainly, yes. In our lives, we should be siding with love and compassion more than anything else. That's a different discussion. But concerning this, yes, the health of everyone is paramount. But if we were going to side RC on the end of the spectrum in regards to health and safety, then nobody would leave their houses regardless of anything. I can go out and get in a car accident tomorrow. So there's risk to life. And so I think, there's been a balance, depending on your perspective, for the entire economy and for the entire public life of everyone outside of sports. And where that happy medium is and where that should be is, I don't believe anybody's to say definitively, but we all make our best judgment and we all have a different perspective on, okay, at what point can we safely interact in society, do the things that we need to do to work and run a business and run a country, versus what do we need to do? What safety precautions need to be in place? Well, wearing a mask, keeping social distancing, making sure that environments are clean, that they're wiped down, that people are taking personal responsibility for keeping themselves clean, and on and on and on, and taking those guidelines. But also, we can't be locked up in our houses because we can't run a country to this magnitude or any country for a long period of time that way.
One thing that a lot of people have really mentioned is the byproducts of this pandemic in terms of the potential for student athletes to now understand that they have the upper hand with the NC2A. Now is the time for them to go ahead, get organized, get representation, have the NC2A that doesn't want to lose all the revenue here. I mean, they'd rather share a third of it than lose the entire thing. Student athletes were really smart. They'd organize and take advantage of this opportunity to go ahead and get representation, maybe potentially have a system in place where, hey, if it costs $50,000 to go to XYZ University for 4 years, I either can take the education for 4 years or I get paid that amount every semester. I mean, now Mark Emmert has to have his contingency plan in place, or a strategy in place, which I don't think we've seen much of a strategy anyway over the years, but it's always been a given. And the golden goose right now is running out of gold.
Wait a minute. Can you back up just a second, RC? I want you to back up because I want to get your point correct. Are you saying that either you're proposing or you're anticipating there being a situation in which a student athlete would have the option of either going to school and taking the tuition money in form of an education, or actually just being paid out and playing football?
I think that's what we're looking at, yeah.
Then they're not student athletes. Well, they're not student athletes then.
Exactly. Which honestly, Mark, you and I both know.
We need to say goodbye to those. We need to say goodbye to those gentlemen and see if they can earn a living down the street at the 7-Eleven and then try out for an NFL team. Because these institutions were created and built to educate people academically.
Well, I think part of it is they have the opportunity to come up with a plan. I can either go to school, I can get paid, or I can do both. But they have an option. They should be able to create options for the players now. If I was the NCAA, that's what I'd be creating right now. Here, these are your 2 or 3 options that you want. that incorporates education either currently or down the road. Like, at the University of Miami, we have kids that are here for 2.5 years and then they go pro. They're allowed to come back and they get their tuition paid for. They don't get their room and board paid for, but they get their tuition paid for. Things of that nature, opportunities like that, and options for them. Because everything's about choice these days, right? So if the NCAA were smart, they'd come up with a strategy in place to give these student athletes options and give them some representation at the same time, and not lose the entire business. Because right now, with the NBA, you have the G League. That's going to start gaining more momentum as we go every year. So if the NCAA were smart, they would create some type of opposition to that type of thinking and give these players an option to do something else. Mark, I appreciate your time as always. Do a fantastic job for all of us with this platform. Take care.
RC, I appreciate the insight. A great phone call, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks, my friend.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to decline. Press 1 to start the call or the call will start.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark Rogers. This is Ballard Sports Media. How you doing?
Ballard, I'm doing great. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. I made a video earlier, and I've been talking with some people tonight on certain streams about this, with the news that broke earlier. And, obviously, if they do end up going through with the football season, it's pretty much, you can count it conference only all the way around. But, then there was news that broke today, not that it got canceled, but it's definitely looking like they actually might go through with not canceling or with canceling the football season this year. And I just think that, I just really think that we need to start taking a little bit of risk. I know there's this virus going around, but, they even set guidelines and safety precautions for the season. It's not like they threw it out there and said, okay, we got a plan and we'll just play it like normal. They even said no fans. They said, I think they said something about assistants and everyone wearing masks on the sidelines. I just think they need to take a risk and at least try it the first couple weeks. Maybe they want to, reshape the season in a way to maybe you play every other week on bye weeks, test players. What are your thoughts?
Okay, well, my first thought is when I hear players in some of their demands and in some of their comments make it sound like that the safety guidelines are non-existent or that they're not looking out for the players. Let's understand that when this became a serious issue back in March, what happened? Well, they immediately took the players off the field and canceled everything.
Right.
So they took it seriously about at the same time that most of us took it seriously. Right about the time that there were professional athletes that first contracted the virus, the one NBA player in particular. Everything shut down like that. Within 2 days, nobody was on a football field anywhere. Nobody was participating in any football activities. So that was first and foremost. I like to call,
I keep bringing that up too, and I'm like, I feel like maybe that was it was almost like a last minute panic type of thing. I mean, they were right there. Look at MLB. It was right there at opening day. In the week of last minute, they cancel it and they cancel the rest of spring training. And, of course, spring football. There was not a single spring football game or practice or anything. And, they canceled it. And when MLB started back up a few weeks ago, they had their own guidelines. Now, again, I mean, you won't see a bunch of players, like, take an offensive line. What is it, like maybe, 7 or 8 players on an O-line and how close they are together? You won't really see players close like that in baseball. It's all spread out anyway. But now they're thinking of canceling baseball because they're getting tests because of really the Marlins. So, I mean, but, Well, now I'm a little bit lost. I don't really know, but
Well, let me
you know
say
what I'm
this,
saying,
Ballard.
I'm sure.
Let me say this. In addition to the positive tests and the statistics that we see come out for positive tests. So in Major League Baseball, the first few testing rounds that I saw, they were in the 1 to 2% range of players that were testing positive. The number that I want to see after that is I want to see some type of metric that shows us how sick those individuals were. I'm not hearing of athletes that are testing positive getting sick and being impacted much by this. I'm not hearing of that. We're not hearing individual cases of athletes getting sick to the point where, yes, they're being quarantined. Yes, they're testing positive. Yes, they're having to sit out for 14 days in quarantine. But I'm not hearing stories, and I'm not seeing metrics. The one thing that I think we get lost in any type of controversial situation, and we've seen two major ones in the last 6 months in this country, is we rely too much on video, we rely too much on emotion of what we see. And that's one case versus looking at, okay, what's the big picture? And let's look at the data, the metrics, and break it into context and figure out what's transpiring here and what is meaningful. And that's what I would like to know. I don't want to know just who is testing positive and what's the percentage, but what is the impact on those individuals?
Right. Like, what's the outcome?
What's the outcome? Well, and the one huge concern that I have, I was going to mention this to the previous caller, RC, is the one health risk concern that I have is that we don't know, and we never will until time will only tell what the long-term impact is on individuals who contracted the virus. Now, in terms of litigation, I am not a lawyer. I'm not qualified to speak on litigious situations and risk involved and how it may play out in court. But I would think, as a reasonable thinking person, that these players are given the option with no penalty to opt out. They are given that opportunity. Do you want to opt out? Do you not want to play the season? And there is no penalty. They remain eligible for their remaining time, and they retain their scholarship. How could they possibly sue anyone when they're given that opportunity?
Right.
They decided
to
play.
The option, how are you going to sue if you test positive or you play and get the virus or whatever? You chose to play.
Exactly. I don't know what they have to stand on. And again, I say that not being a lawyer or having a legal background, but just by common sense, that if all the information is presented, these are the risks, these are the health and safety guidelines that we are setting up. They're approved by the players. They agree to them. There's a kind of a groundswell going on right now that I just read about a few minutes ago before we came online, that the families of the Ohio State players, the parents and so forth, they have reviewed everything. They are comfortable with it. They feel confident. And they're basically stating that they fully support the health and safety standards and want to see their children, seems like an odd term to use, but that's what they are, their children play football this fall.
Yeah, I got you. And here's something that I was kind of thinking about. Let's say if, like, hypothetically speaking, like, let's say Alabama tests every single player on their team. Let's say you get 3 players that test positive, only 3 out of, like, what is it on a college roster? 100 kids,
85
maybe?
scholarships, 105 is typically the roster limit.
Okay, well, let's say only 3 guys test positive.
Sure.
Out of the rest of them. You know, you still have enough for a team. Those that test negative, I mean, but then again, you got to think, what if they've come in contact with the ones that tested positive? So I mean, I was going to try to say those that test positive sit out, those that test negative, you know, and if you have enough players that tested negative for the virus and are healthy, just let all of those players play the game.
Yeah, well, we would need an expert in here because I think maybe the issue, and maybe somebody will correct me on this, would be that the reason why teams are shut down as soon as somebody tests positive is that because, let's say in your scenario, we've got 100 players and 3 test positive. We don't know how many of the other players have been impacted by those 3 and may test positive tomorrow, possibly. And that's there are inaccuracies with the test, and there are several different types of tests. So I would hope that the various college football conferences are utilizing the test that is most accurate to date.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not saying that this is an easy thing, but by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that if we look at the normal activity of these college athletes outside of the football arena, that I would think their risk of contracting this is just as great as it is under a controlled environment, a somewhat controlled environment, playing football. And Trevor Lawrence said the exact same thing. He said, we've got the best medical personnel right here. We have guidelines and conditions and safety rules that are keeping us in line versus just being out there in life and doing whatever we would.
Right. Yeah, well, you know, obviously the best we can do as fans is sit back and just hope and pray that, you know, and it's not just affecting football. Obviously, this is worldwide. And, I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this virus. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I fully believe it or anything. I think it's there. I've kind of been saying I don't know if it's really what all these experts have made it out to be. I'm not really sure. But we can just hope and pray and just see what happens. And, you know, I mean, they haven't canceled it yet, but it obviously does look like it's heading in that direction. But thanks for taking my call, and I'll let you get back to more calls, I guess.
Appreciate that, Ballard. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye.
Ballard Sports Media giving us a call, 860-325-3687. I'll get the number up here on the banner in just a second, 860-325-3687. Mark Thibodeau has a big meeting with a friend tonight at 10:04. Oh, it is 10:04 at the time that he left the message. I thought his meeting was a precise 10:04. So he'll catch the next show. So make note of that, everybody out there. Mark will be back for the next show. We'll be here Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern Time for Florida State Seminoles Live. And who knows, maybe I'll be back sometime before then. Hopefully. And I appreciate, and I want everyone to underline this, I greatly appreciate everybody being very flexible with me in regards to the live streams and the call-in shows, personal life, work life, and trying to fit these in. So I can't commit necessarily to a schedule. But I try to get the notifications out there, and that's why it's important for you to subscribe and hit the bell for the notifications. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Nate. I'm not going to say the rest because it's too long.
Well, by the time you tell us that you're not going to say it, you could have spit it out.
Oh.
That's a great handle, Nate. You should be proud of it.
All right. Going to great, don't be late, a.k.a. making mistakes.
There it is.
Jeez, that's too long. By the way, I'm kind of sad and mad for the college football season that's heading the wrong direction. Well, not, I won't say heading, but slightly heading. If it is. Like, it's urging to the point where we won't have college football, but I want to have college football, like everyone does. I won't say everyone, but just like most of the college football fans want football. I mean, for me, I don't want. Well, I heard actually for the fact I saw an article about the Big Ten might cancel their season That's true.
That they might cancel the season. Absolutely, it's possible. Sure.
Well, why would the Big Ten, if it's a Power 5 conference, if they wanted to cancel the season, I just don't get that at all.
I'm sorry, Nate, you kind of cut out there. I couldn't quite get your question. Why would the Power 5 conferences what?
Why would the Big Ten, as a Power 5 conference, want to cancel their season if they did?
Why would they want to cancel the season? Well, they would not want to. The reason for cancellation is twofold, basically. Number one, you have a group of people that would deem it too much of a health and safety risk to the players. So I think that there are genuinely people out there in high places, low places, all over the place, over the map. You hear it on news television all the time and online. There are people that deem this pandemic to be severe to the point in which we should be taking as few risks as possible and do not trust the safety and health guidelines that have been set up by the conferences and the institutions, and would say playing football is too much of a health risk. So you have those people, number one, Nate. But I think even more than those people, you have a group of people in high places that are more concerned with legal issues, that if players contract the virus, if they get extremely sick, that there could be legal action that's taken, and football programs, institutions, conferences could be sued.
Right.
That's the big concern.
Oh, okay. See, yeah, that got me concerned too, because I was worried that if, for example, if Big Ten were gonna cancel the season, that would make me mad. So I don't want them to cancel the season, their season. I mean, we have a choice to make if we want to have a college football season. Like, there's a choice that we have to make. Like, if it's safe to not have a season, or is it if it's a risk to play college football season? So, yeah.
Well, Nate, I appreciate the call. I appreciate your support. You're always here for us, so I appreciate the conversation.
You're welcome.
Our guy Nate, with a call in tonight. We've got 123 on the line. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Of course, once our video stream here is done, you can go back and catch what you miss. So I'm looking at ESPN right now. The title bar says Power 5 Conference is talking about no fall football. We've got Heather Dinich discussing it right now.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to decline.
Majority of Big Ten presidents indicated they'd vote to postpone season. And that brings us to another subject, which would be spring football. I'll get to that in a minute. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
What's up, Mark? It's JT.
Hey, JC, what's going on, man?
Nothing, man. So I just wanted to give a little bit of insight. So I got two friends that play in college football right now.
Okay.
One of them plays Division 2 or Division 3, and they got their season postponed. So basically, like, they still got to go on campus, but their season is going to take place in the spring, and basically, like, they're going to treat the fall like spring ball, basically. Now, my other friend plays for a school called Middle Tennessee, and that's a group of 5 school. And I was asking him, I was just on the phone with him. I was like, what do you think is going to happen in the season? He was like, as of right now, we don't know. But what he's hearing, well, what might happen is that the group of 5 conferences, they have a high chance of canceling their whole entire conference season because the group of 5 schools, they don't bring in that much revenue. And then the MAC conference, they they already canceled. But the Power Five conferences, they won't really be. Well, they can cancel, but like they won't be at a higher chance as canceling as like the Group of Five conferences, because those Group of Five schools, most of them, they just probably won't even have the funding. Like UConn, like I didn't even know that UConn, they have to pay their, like, they don't really make a lot of revenue off their football program. Like, they lose revenue because of that. So that was, like, a good reason why they decided to cancel theirs. So, like, I was wondering what you was thinking. So, like, if two Group of Five conferences cancels, right? So let's say the MAC already cancels and the American Athletic Conference cancels. Is that going to, make the higher ups in the Power Five conferences more likely to cancel because of the domino effect? Because you remember with March Madness, one conference canceled, then basically everybody else canceled their conference championships.
Okay, the domino effect that occurred during March Madness was basically nobody knew what was going on. Nobody had a barometer on what this was and what it would become and the ramifications. So basically, that was commissioners of conferences reacting to other decisions made by other commissioners. So you wouldn't want to be the commissioner who left your basketball teams out playing when everybody else was saying, hey, this is too much of a safety concern. You don't want to be the guy to say, well, players be damned, we're going to go play and make money and decide a conference championship. So basically that fell into play. And this is the issue that I have with a lot of decisions that are made out there. They're not made for the right reasons. They're made to look good. And so that's what that was all about, is that there was somebody who made a stand. And among the major conferences, I know that it was the Big Ten in basketball that said, we're shutting down the conference tournament. We're done. We're shutting it down. Nobody's playing. And then the other ones fell in place. Okay, let's understand the money situation in the Group of Five versus the Power Five. So as you mentioned, UConn loses money playing football. They lose about $13 million per year. So they have saved themselves by not playing. They have made a financial decision that also works well with all the safety and the legal issues to say, we're going to shut down, not play football, and save $13 million for the university. Okay. The issue that the Group of Five has, JT, is that think about a school in the Mid-American Conference. Look at their non-conference schedule. Look at Kent State, for example. Kent State had scheduled to play Alabama, Kentucky, and Penn State, 3 huge opponents in the non-conference. For each one of those games, Kent State would have been paid around $1.5 million, about $1.5 million per game. So as soon as the Power Fives decided we're not playing any non-conference opponents, well, that took $5 million away from Kent State. In addition to that, if they're not going to have fans in the stands, for what little Kent State makes for tickets at the gate and in terms of revenue and souvenirs and concessions and so forth, they can't make any of that money. And number 3, I don't know the dollar amount on this, but I understand that to put in all these safety guidelines and protocols and the testing is extremely expensive as well. So a program like Kent State has had $5 million taken away from their revenue by the Power 5 teams canceling on them. They don't have a way to make money at their home games, and they have all this overhead in regards to protocols and testing and guidelines that cost a ton of money. Therefore, it saves them money not to play football. Under these circumstances, since those 3 games were taken away from them, it saves them money not playing football. Now, at the Power 5 level, the teams that we talk about on a daily basis, all the helmets behind me, all those schools, well, they are pushing to play, and this is more of a money situation for them because of how much money they make playing football and how much money they lose by not playing football. Wisconsin announced that they would lose $100 million this year if they don't play football.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So basically, the Group of 5 schools, like, if the season was to get canceled, like, from a financial standpoint, it wouldn't be as big of a loss to them because, you know, football isn't like a big part of the revenue stream. But for the Power 5 conferences, canceling the season will be a big financial loss because a lot of their revenue comes from college football. Is that correct?
Okay. Well, when you look at the group of 5, we're talking about 5 conferences. We're roughly talking about 60 teams. You know, there's a big variation there. There's a difference between UCF and Boise State and those schools at the top of the list versus at the bottom of the list, those teams like UTEP in regards to revenue. So I don't want to speak for the entire group of 5. It's not like they all lose money. But the reason that they would be losing money this year is that the majority of them don't get those big payouts. Now, Boise State doesn't get paid out because they don't need that. They don't need to travel to Alabama to get paid $2 million to play. So you don't hear about those type of agreements between a Boise State or UCF and a Power 5. But you hear it all over the place among the FCS teams and the lower level group of 5 teams. And that's what makes them money and keeps them solvent. So they don't have that this year because the Power 5 aren't playing any non-conference games.
All right. So I got one more question. So if the college football season gets moved to spring, it's 2 conflicts I want to ask you about. So the XFL is back. It's supposed to get ready to relaunch in 2021. They're going to have a bubble. And if the college football season gets moved to spring, maybe, do you think it could be a couple of college football players that say, you know what, I don't want to play college football no more. I want to go to the XFL, make money. They choose just to go ahead, drop out, and they, you know, and these are like the high level college football players, Mark, like, you know, like they're good, but they're not eligible to declare for the NFL draft as yet. So these are players that will most likely, you know, get the XFL, not just everybody. So if that happens, will college football, you know, losing players to the XFL, how would that affect college football? And then my last question is, before I get off, is if the college football season starts in the spring, like how long will it last? And then like how will it be able to like recalibrate the start? Like, you know, like if it starts in like February or March, like how will they be able to, you know, get it back on track to where they just start back on time in like September or August?
I'm going to shoot a video on this, JT. It's on my list right here. I got to work on this as soon as we get off here because I don't see where spring football season works. I don't see where the math adds up in being able to cram in 2 football seasons in 1 calendar year. So let's say that just like we're looking at a 10-game season for the fall of 2020, they decide we're going to play 10 games in the spring of 2021. And then I think that they would even say that's going to impact the fall of 2021, and we won't even be able to play a complete season in the fall of 2021. We'll have to play a 10-game season there. Okay. I just don't see where we can fit in a season in the spring. So think of it this way. Let's say a spring season starts the first week of February, which can we really consider that spring? The first week of February? Can you imagine games in Madison, Wisconsin, and Minneapolis, and Evanston, Illinois, and Ann Arbor, Michigan, the first week of February? But anyway, Boise State and the like. Okay, so if you're playing a 10-game season with 2 bye weeks for 12 weeks, that's 3 months, and you start the first week of February, you're playing February, March, and all of April, okay? Then you have to play whatever bowl games they're going to be, which maybe there won't be any bowl games or maybe just a New Year's 6, but there will be a college football playoff. And so that's going to be played in April. So we're not going to conclude the college football season February, March, April. I'm sorry. February, March, April is the regular season. We'd be playing those games in May. We would not have a conclusion to the college football season until mid to late May. And that's if we start the first week of February. In addition to that, the teams and the players need to prepare for the season. So they need at least 4 weeks in camp. So they're going to be spending all of January, if not sooner than that. They might be backed up to Christmas preparing for a spring college football season. And then the season's not going to end for at least 4 teams until mid-May. How in the world can anyone ask athletes to train for 4 to 6 weeks, play 10 games, play a college football playoff that ends in mid-May, then turn around in August and start playing football again for a September season. I just don't see how it works.
And that's what I was thinking too, Mark. And plus, before I got two more things before I let you go, and I'm gonna go for real. So the first one is like, if the college football season gets pushed back to spring, that means Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence might as well not play because the NFL combine is around that time.
I haven't gotten to that yet. Yes, there's no reason for a lot of people. There are 250 some players that get drafted, and there are probably 500 players who think they will get drafted, who have some reason to believe and hope that they will be drafted, because as we all know, each and every year the NFL draft concludes, and there are a number of players that were on the board to be drafted and could have been drafted, but decisions are made. So there are legitimately 400 to 500 players that have a legitimate chance of being drafted in the NFL draft. Well, they have no reason to play spring football. That's going to be going on at the same time that they would be preparing for the NFL draft. So eliminate 400 to 500 players off the board to play this spring season. So forget all your draft eligible seniors, your draft eligible juniors to play this spring football season. I'm not understanding this spring football season at all.
Yeah, and then the last thing, after this, I'm going to go and let somebody else come on. So a lot of people are asking about the players being paid and being compensated. And I was saying, I was like, look, if you got a high-level 5-star athlete coming out of high school and he doesn't want to go to college and he wants to go to college, but he's only worried about getting paid. Alternative to that is the XFL. Now, the XFL is, unlike the NFL, you can come straight out of high school and play on the XFL and get paid. And then, you just go to the NFL that way. And it's a liable option because a lot of people, I post that on Twitter, a lot of people's like, JT, nobody from the XFL, nobody from that league can get to the NFL, but it was actually a college football player last year. I can't think of his name, but he played for West Virginia. He was like a all Big 12 player, and then he had an academic suspension, so he was supposed to transfer, but instead of transferring, he decided to go to the XFL and play. So he played in the XFL. The season, it came to an end because it got shut down. But he got drafted in round 5 by the Carolina Panthers. So that shows, with him getting drafted from the XFL going that route, it shows other college athletes, if you can play and you got the skill set that, if you want to actually go and, make some money instead of, relying on the whole college football and whatever they got going on trying to get the compensation, you can just take that route if you're a high-quality football player. So I want to let you know, I want to know what you think about that. And thanks for taking my call.
Appreciate it, man. Can't say that I really stayed with that last point. I'm sorry, JT. It had more to do with the XFL. I just think bottom line that I just don't see where the math works, the logistics for a spring season. I just laid it out right there. Unless we're playing 6 games, are you going to really determine a champion based on 6 games? But if you play a 10-game season with 2 byes, you're just not able to fit that in and then play a season in 2021, in the fall of 2021. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
MSU number 1 fan.
MSU number 1 fan. It's been a while. How you been?
Good. I'm doing good. I'm going to hit a little rant about never naming the ACC.
Okay. Rant away.
Why don't the ACC let them in for a season and let them back out to be independent? Why?
Money.
When do TV contracts expire? Is it 2024, something like that?
I don't know. Whose TV contract?
I meant the TV contracts with the teams and that.
Well, it depends what teams and what conferences you're talking about. They don't all expire at the same time.
I thought about Notre Dame. Right.
With NBC?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think somebody mentioned that to me in the last few weeks. 2024 kind of stands out.
And then let Notre Dame in the ACC for 2024. Then let them back out and say, Notre Dame, I'm like, we didn't win the ACC championship, so we're going to go back to being a plural independent. I'm keeping in the conference till the contract expires and say, sorry.
Okay, wait a minute.
Sorry.
So you're talking from the perspective of the ACC. If you ran the ACC, you would tell Notre Dame that
Yep.
they need to join the conference.
Yep.
Sure. That's what I've been saying for years, actually.
Or you don't play our season. Simple as that. How will the non-conference games work for next season because of this season being canceled? Will they keep them the same schedule, or will they get rid of it and make a new schedule?
Well, I don't think anybody's really addressing that right now because that's so far off the radar to determine what's going to happen to these non-conference games let's just focus on this season and figure out if we can have a season and then figure out for down the road. But all those contracts are kind of stretched out and they're going to have to figure out, and that's not going to be a blanket thing. That's going to be a per case basis where the two schools are going to have to get together. Let's say LSU and Texas to say, okay, well, we were supposed to play in 2020. We didn't play. What are we going to do? Do we have an open date? Did we just let it go? I would think most of those big matchups, though, would be rescheduled.
Yeah. I would like to see an 18 playoff. And here's how I'd probably do it, the 18 playoff. You take the 8 top teams and the top 8 top schedules and put them in the playoff.
Well, I'm all for that, MSU #1 fan, an 18 playoff, but how do you determine who the 8 best teams are?
I do it strength of schedule.
Strength of
If
schedule.
you play Clemson, and teams like that, if you lose 1 or 2 of them, you're in the playoff. That's the way I would do it.
The team with the 8 strongest schedules in the country make the playoff?
Yeah, if they're really tough, you can play Alabama or Clemson, LSU in a row. That's exactly how I do it. 8 toughest schedules, you're in the playoff.
Okay.
Michigan State, 2020, for example. If
All right.
America would beat Ohio State or something like that, beat Michigan, beat Iowa, and all that.
Well, I believe
All right.
South Carolina had one of the 8 toughest schedules in the country last year.
Yeah, and now Michigan State is a real tough one too this year. And I think that if the player committee would look at and see, look, Michigan State beat Minnesota, they beat Michigan, they beat Penn State, they beat Ohio State, Iowa, these real tough teams. They should be in the playoff, or the playoff conversation.
Yeah, well, I
That's
love
the way
playoff
I-
conversations just about as much as anyone, but right now we're trying to get a football season together, and that's the concern of most. So I wouldn't be concerned with 8 teams, 4 teams, 2 teams right now.
I hope you have a season.
All right, MSU #1 fan, I appreciate the call.
Yeah, thank you. But
All righty. Playing football wouldn't even be one of the 50 riskiest things college kids could do this fall. All right. We have had several contributions to the super chat. One comes from 247 Canes. I appreciate that. We posted that to the screen. I think I have lost the other ones, and I have lost the ability to post that to the screen. We will get those recognized at some point. So thank you so much for the super chat contribution. I believe 2 more came in. Brian, however, Mark is not giving all the details. College football is a huge profit at certain schools. Money is being used to build buildings, as an example, the new journalism building. Okay, Brian, I appreciate you joining us. I've yet to see you join the conversation in the past, so welcome to MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Don't know exactly what that alludes to in regards to my statements, but thank you so much for contributing. Dennis, good to see you, as well as George, Nate, Cheryl, good to see you. Of course, we got Sean Ramsey. I believe this is the first time I've seen Sean's avatar in the live chat. Sean, welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Again, RC was our first caller tonight. Chris, good to see you. Quentin Lee as well. The XFL will be a big factor. Watch players in high school gonna skip college and go get paid in the XFL. Over the past several days, I've broken down the ACC, the SEC, and the Big Ten schedules. Look out for those videos. Most of those are posted. I still need to tackle the SEC schedule video. Hopefully, there will be a schedule to discuss. Top 25, we discussed that on our call-in show last night. I believe the top 25, or maybe the night before. But I'm going to roll out my analysis of the coaches' top 25 that was released a few days ago. I also would like to run down all the players who have opted out for this season. There are 3 major names in the Big Ten. Rondell Moore, wide receiver, Purdue, one of the very best in the business, electric, dynamic player. Micah Parsons, potentially the best defensive player in college football at Penn State, has opted out. And also possibly the best wide receiver in the Big Ten, Minnesota's Rashad Bateman. So I'm looking to run down all the players who have opted out and then the players who will step in for them. Josh Jackson, starting quarterback in Maryland, had a horrific 2019 season, better seasons at Virginia Tech before that, but Josh Jackson and 6 other Maryland players have opted out. So I would like to do a video looking at those particular players. And again, we hope that all this discussion is relevant. A spring football season, I somewhat outlined it in regards to my thoughts about whether it's viable. And I want to give it a fair shake. So I'm really going to sit down with a calendar and try to work out variations of what a spring season could look like and if it makes sense. My initial thought is, and of course, be looking out for our roster breakdowns. We release those almost every day. I'm in conversations with contributors from Wisconsin, USC, Auburn, UCLA, and others to discuss, again, what we hope is personnel that makes sense and is relevant to our discussion over the next several months during college football. But we've broken down the rosters for so many teams across the nation: Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, oh my goodness, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Auburn, Alabama, LSU, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and others. And we will continue that this week, unless the only thing that's going to stop us from breaking down rosters would be a cancellation of the season. And then Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, will have to regroup. And we will do that. We will have plenty to talk about in the absence of college football this fall. I would rather be watching college football and talking about the games on the field, but we will not be short on content here. That may even give me 3, 4, 5 months to break down all the stuff that I'm requested to break down historically. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
This is Luke Walker.
Hey, Luke. How are you?
I'm good. I personally agree with most of what Trevor Lawrence had to say in his tweet about how the players would be safer on campus than they would be off. And there are lots of statistics that back him up on that. Like the highest number of positive tests usually come right when the players enter the campus. And they always go down once they're on campus being monitored by professionals and have being tested regularly.
No, I think it's a great point. Of course, we can't. I don't want to overemphasize what Trevor Lawrence has to say, because while he's a great football player, he is one player, so his opinion shouldn't be amplified or blown up to be more important than anybody else's opinion. But he is a player, who is on campus in the football program, understands the workings of the football program, and knows what the safety guidelines have been presented to him and the rest of the team. So he's as knowledgeable as just about anybody else to comment on his comfort level.
Yeah, and the North Carolina receiver, Bo Corrales, also tweeted and says he has a heart condition. He says he feels safest on campus and not at home because he knows it's still dangerous when he goes home.
Now, when you say on campus, there's one thing to be on campus. It's another thing to be on campus and playing football. I guess that the one safety measure in all this is that while there is a ton of contact in football, of course, it's a collision sport, everyone on the field, presumably, if everyone's doing their job, everyone's been tested and is cleared to play. So I think the sweet spot is to be able to test it far enough in advance to be able to get the test results back, which I believe they're down to like a 2-hour process. But then also, obviously, you want to test them as close to game time as possible so that the tests are more valid. And so I would think that maybe the morning of the game, the players are tested. I'm just guessing. And that those test results would be extremely valid, and there would be a safe environment to know, okay, everybody on this field has been tested this morning and we're clean, we're clear. And so we're playing a game in which everybody's tested negative, and therefore we can go ahead and play the game in safety.
Yeah, and I also think that they could kind of pull off a college football bubble similar to what they're doing in the NBA and the MLS, because it's been well established that these aren't normal college football students. And in normal years, they're kind of in a bubble anyway, so they just stay in the football facilities and travel with the team.
So you're talking about each individual team, each individual school having its own bubble, not a la the NHL and the NBA, where the entire league is able to go to a location and play.
Yeah, like something similar to that. Like keep them all in one dorm building and keep them isolated from the rest of the students, and they take their classes online like they kind of already do.
Absolutely. That's what I believe should be happening. And I was under, it shouldn't be an assumption of mine, but I was, that that's what would happen during this.
Well, I think that would work, and I haven't really heard of any schools having outbreaks of positive tests that would indicate that this might not work.
I'm with you, Luke, and I don't want to in any way minimize the health risk or minimize the severity of this, but I think we also need to understand that when you take the mass, because people shudder when they see these huge numbers thrown out. What is it, 160,000 deceased, and whatever the number is, 4 million, 5 million have contracted the virus. Well, let's understand how small the population sample is of people aged 70 or 75 and older in this country. It's a small percentage of the country. I know that my mom turned 90 years old a few months ago, God bless her soul. And when she turned 90, I was curious, how many people live to be 90? Well, only about 10% of the people live to be 90 years old. So we're talking about a very small percentage of the population that make it to those ages. But that is the group of people that is making up like almost 50% of the caseload, and especially the deaths. So once you...
Yeah, I think a lot of that also has to do with senior citizen homes and stuff
oh,
like that.
My goodness. Well, I saw a statistic, Luke, where less than 0.5% of the country is in a nursing home. So if you look at the country's at about 330 million people, so 1% would be about 3.5 million people. So it's about 0.5%. So that seems to make sense, that there's about a little less than 2 million people in nursing homes in the country. That sounds that it's probably accurate. And that out of that 2%, almost 50%, like 48% of the deaths are coming from those nursing homes. So this is why I said off the top that we get these numbers and they need to be put into context. But I don't want to discount the health issues and the tragedies that have hit certain families. But when we look at the entirety of the situation, it is hitting people with pre-existing conditions and it's hitting the elderly.
All right, Mark, I just wanted to call in and express my opinion.
Well, I appreciate it, Luke. Thanks so much for joining the live chats all the time. All right, folks, appreciate everybody jumping on the line tonight. We've tapped out at about 155 on the line here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And again, be looking out for our recent content. I'm breaking down these new schedules. So I'm going to hit all the conferences, and hopefully these videos will mean something. That's what we're all hoping for. So I'll switch gears if we understand here in the next few days that the season's going to be canceled. But as it stands right now, I am breaking down conference schedules that have just been released in the last few days. And I've got to get to the SEC, the Pac-12, and we still have yet to hear from the Big 12. Of course, my top 25 analysis of the coaches' preseason poll. Those players that have opted out, I'm going to give my perspective on that. Also, the spring football season that's being proposed that I think is ludicrous unless I break it down and find out otherwise. And also, of course, roster breakdowns. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, how you doing? It's Dave Knight.
Hey, Dave. How are you?
I'm good. And yourself, sir?
I'm good.
Hey, I have a question. I don't think you guys really talked about. And let's suppose that, we cleared this hurdle and we end up playing football. One question I had for you, actually two, but I'll give you the first one, is when we go to distribute seats, in our stadiums, because all stadiums have different sizes and capacities, right? Like, I'm going to talk about Notre Dame just for a second, but not too long. I read an article that said they were going to let all the student body be inside. They would honor the season ticket holders. So that question comes back to me is, for every college, how do they distribute or decide an allotment for the visiting teams? My second question is, and I'm going to get out of your hair after that, is when you talk about metrics, I think a lot of the people that probably listen to you maybe don't understand what metrics are. Actually, I wonder if you could provide an explanation to everybody about what metrics actually are. So I'll let you go after that.
Well, David, before I let you go, I want to let you know that so certainly as a college football analyst of sorts, I will call myself, others have, I certainly have my strengths and my weaknesses. So understanding what the game day ticket situation is certainly not in my ballpark. I have no idea what the distribution of tickets are. I have several shows, and what comes to mind in particular is my Ohio State show with 3 beat writers, and those guys, they're all over every angle of the college football experience. So I could go to them and ask them. They would have an idea because they have to deal with these programs from every angle. But I don't know. I've never been involved with.
Mark?
Yes.
I do watch the Ohio State program with those gentlemen you mentioned, and if I'm not working or caught up with work, then I always watch those. So maybe you can throw that by them, and maybe I can catch their input on that.
Okay, I will try to remember that. Now, there was a time in my life when I had a lot of contact with college athletics officials. So for about 9 years, when it came to covering college athletics, I was right there at the games all the time, talking in the SEC in particular with Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Alabama. I'm at all the games. I've got face-to-face contact with sports information directors and athletic directors and all the coaches at those schools. So at that point in time, I was quite a bit more knowledgeable when it came to those type of questions, those type of topics.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, and probably with even the preponderance that we may not have college football season, I'm guessing that no colleges have actually went and sat down and said, okay, we're going to allow X amount of people in the stadium, and we're going to allow X amount of people from our, backing governing body, and then we'll allow X amount of opposing team tickets to be distributed. Probably, I would guess, through some sort of lottery if they'd already purchased them. But, that's all hearsay at this point, and it's all a guessing game because, like you said, we may not even have a season. But the metrics, I use those in my job, all the time. And I think when you mention that, because I read the sideline chats, and there's a lot of people dropping their remarks from their heart, but not really from their thinking part of their brain.
And certainly this situation with both the race relations and being what it's been and what the discussion has had to be spilling into college football, and then certainly with this COVID that is more metric based, or could be. I am somewhat hesitant. I certainly don't have a handle on it like I do college football to be very confident in saying this is my stance on this particular coach or this particular program or this rivalry or whatever the case might be, because these are the metrics and this is my knowledge of watching the games and understanding who's won the games and why they won it, versus talking about all of this medical situation. We're delving into uncharted territory for somebody like me. Now, I did cover news for 9 years and had to cover a lot of things involving, I remember one of my first assignments was a murder trial. So I learned a whole lot about the legal system in that particular situation. So yeah, this is a learning experience for all of us in understanding what, to make sense of it all. We almost have an overload at this point of information and sources, whether they be online or social media or the mainstream media on television, to try to determine what's truth, what's fact, and then once we see statistics, what do they mean?
Yeah, and that's true. And I think with what a lot of people don't understand about the COVID virus is that it has certain demographics associated with it that what a lot of people don't understand, that it really doesn't play by any sort of rules, because there's always going to be a flyer, somebody that should be in that age category that, should seemingly have no repercussions, but they do. I've read a lot of articles, I've done a lot of research. It's part of my job. And I can't send anything out to the rest of my company without being approved by higher ups. But it just, it can affect different people, different ways. There's a lot of dynamics, and they just don't have all the answers right now, so it's such a, flip of the coin, just like influenza was last year in the United States. It's maddening, and influenza season starts in, say, October, so then you're mixing all those in together, and I'm not saying that they're going to commingle, but you're almost dealing with a double indemnity at that point.
Very true.
If that makes sense.
It does.
So, anyway, always good to see your show, and thanks for everything you do. Keep hanging in there, man. I the other day I wanted to ask you real quick, were you working two jobs? I kind of figured you were, but sometimes I don't want to overstep my boundaries. And when you mentioned that yesterday on your other show, I was like, man, this guy's working 80 hours a week. I wonder when does he get some rest?
I think we're north of 80. I have kind of backed off. To tell you the truth, Dave, I used to estimate it because I wanted to know how much I was working, and I was always around 100. And I would say over the past couple months, even though I have continued to deliver content on a daily basis, I've backed off a bit here on my channel, but I'm still certainly putting in a good 40 here as well.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, I know everybody appreciates what you do. I'll be heading to Dubai to work for good in October. So when I get there, I have some extra change. I'll be able to kick you down some good cash to promote your program, okay?
Well, David, I appreciate it. And I will let you and everybody else know that in any way that you can contribute, that doesn't have to be monetarily. And I know that times are tough out there for millions of people. And so just hitting that like button, letting people know, whether that's a direct communication for family and friends, or that's out on social media that we exist here. I appreciate what anyone can do to help us build the channel. And David, your comments, your encouragement, the direct statements that you've made to me to encourage me, and just your curiosity about my career and what we're doing here has been a great support. So thank you so much.
Hey, you're very welcome. Hey, have a good night, and get some rest sometime, okay?
Thanks, David. We're going to do that fairly soon.
Or try.
Okay. Alrighty.
Okay, bye-bye.
Our guy, David Knight, who's been watching for a few months, and certainly great encouragement to me. We've only been on the line for an hour and 15, man. If I shut it down right now, man, that would be an all-time low, I think, for a live stream. Other than maybe the few times that I started a live stream and then all of a sudden got a phone call from somebody significant who said, let's go out to dinner or something. Those have been the few times that I've said, oh, here's a 12-minute live stream. Sorry, see ya. But those are rare. And man, I wanted this to be the year. I wanted this to be the year that we did a 24-hour live stream marathon. We were going to see if I could hold up for 24 hours talking college football with you leading into the season. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, who's on the line.
Hey, Mark, it's Michael Hoke. How you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, Michael.
I hope you're having a great weekend.
I am. I'm having a nice weekend. I certainly don't like the news and where it's headed, but hey, if college football is the worst that we need to deal with and worry about, then life is not so bad.
Other issues. All right, I'm going to do this because normally I talk to people, but I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Do you think with this going on now and with everything going on with the potential of this play next spring, do you see a lot more people like Rondell Moore actually foregoing their junior and senior years to start getting ready for the draft? Or do you think with this now, Rondell Moore might reconsider? Personally, I think he's just going to stick with his decision.
Okay, so if you're talking about if there is a season or not a season.
No, with the season, okay, if there's not a season, or as they said, maybe pushing it to the spring. Do you see a lot more players maybe just foregoing their last year or 2 years and just focusing on that, or do you see them maybe going back to playing in the spring?
So let me ask you this, because I should know this, but Rondell Moore, obviously, he played that freshman season in 2018. So this would be his junior season coming up, right?
Yes.
But he is eligible for the NFL draft?
Yeah, because this is going to be his junior. He's foregoing his junior season to focus on for the draft next year. Because he did play the games last year, but he got injured.
Sure. Yeah, he played a shortened 2019, but that was his sophomore season.
Yes.
So he's going to be a junior this season. So he was going to play this season, of course, before all this hit, and then he was going to be eligible for the 2021 NFL draft.
Yes.
But now that he's not playing this season, he's still, from an age classification, eligible for the NFL draft. Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I believe so.
Yes, because it's either or. It's either classification in school or it's an age requirement, and he would hit the age requirement. So if there's a spring season, he's got no reason to play football. And that's what I was talking about a few minutes ago, that the NFL draft takes, to be technical about it, 256 players, unless there are supplemental picks and additional picks. If you do the math, it's 256 players. But there are at least 400 players who have a reasonable hope of being drafted that are being scouted. It's more than that, actually. About 350 get invited to the NFL Combine, and then tack on a number of draft-eligible players beyond that. So I would think that there would be a mass exodus of 400 to 500 football players that don't want to play in the spring unless they're going to play a few games and then say, you know what, the draft is coming up. I just wanted to give the scouts an extra look at me. That determination could be made depending on the player. If it's a Trevor Lawrence type, that he doesn't need to show anything else. But if it's a borderline draft eligible player who may have to go the free agency route, they could opt to play 3 or 4 games in the spring and then say, nope, I'm getting ready for the draft now.
But no, do you actually see a lot of people doing that? Maybe like Trevor Lawrence or maybe Ian Book from Notre Dame?
Well, absolutely. They're not going to play a spring football season. When is the spring season going to start? I just laid out a plan in which it would start the first week of February so it could be done by mid-May. But that's at the time in which these players are working out for NFL scouts. They're going to the Combine, and then the draft is the last week of April. So I don't know how they're going to play football and be ready for the draft and then go right into a situation where they're being drafted and going into rookie camp in the NFL. That's absurd.
Yeah. So you're going to see. So you think there's going to be a mass exodus too coming up in the next few weeks?
If there's a cancellation to the season, sure.
Yeah. And do you think that's going to happen most likely?
Oh man. If you would have asked me a month ago, I would have said, and I think I did say a few times when people pressed me for an answer, that I was about 75% confident that there would be a season. Now, I'd say I'm about 35 to 40% confident that there will be a football season.
Okay. Open up the Pandora's box. The Big Ten comes out tomorrow. He says we're going to do like with the back end in case of the 2020 season. How fast do you think the dominoes will fall by the end of the day tomorrow with the rest of the Power 5 conferences?
Can you repeat the beginning of that? Did you say the Big Ten?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's a big domino. That is, by some measurements, the most important conference, and I'm going to offend some SEC fans, but they made the most money last year. Wow. I know the Big Ten was the first basketball conference to take a stand on the NCAA, not on the NCAA tournament, on their conference tournament, and then everybody else fell into place after that. That would cause the other conferences to look at it long and hard. But obviously there's been a schedule built by every conference that's not dependent on the other conferences. So the football portion of it, the scheduling there's no connectedness this season anymore. They're all playing their own schedules within the conference. So, well,
in the SEC, if I'm not mistaken, in the SEC and the ACC play one non-conference game also?
Not the SEC, the ACC. The ACC is going to play one non-conference game. Those have yet to be announced, but they're going to have to be either against the Big 12 or against the Group of 5.
I was just wondering, no, because I think it's like around 15 to 20% that there's going to be a college football season at the end of the month. But I hope I'm wrong, just like you are.
I hear you, Michael. It is a strange time, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then one other thing too is if this progresses through the year and early next year, what do you think the chances of? All right, well, let me ask you this. I know you're more into college football and stuff like that, but what do you think the chance of this triggering into like the winter season for like basketball stuff too?
Oh, I think this is something that always hit me each and every year when I was covering all sports, is that how quickly college basketball starts after college football. October 15th is midnight madness for college basketball typically. That's only 5 weeks after we start college football. So the college basketball season starts in early to mid-November in terms of playing the actual games. But prior to that is, of course, their training camp. So I would think that even though the focus is on college football, because number one, it's more urgent, it's hitting us right in the face, the season, and number two, it's more popular and creates more revenue, that the people that follow strictly college basketball, they have to be thinking about the ramifications there, because they're only 5 weeks behind. No, they're more than that. I'm sorry. They're more like they're about 8 weeks.
Right. It's about 6 weeks, isn't it?
Pardon me?
Ain't that about 5 to 6 weeks after the start of the season for college football?
Well, that's Midnight Madness, so that starts the actual practice, but they don't hit the floor for games until November 15th, something in that range.
All right, hey Mark, thanks for your time. Have a great night, a great week, and get some sleep sometime.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. I will.
All right, take care.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Mark Rogers TV, voice of college football. I would encourage anybody out there to help us support the channel, even if you don't agree with me. If you like what we do, which is provide the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. And I will say that I will not say that definitively in terms of best discussion, debate, and analysis of college football, but that's the goal. That is the mission. Best discussion, debate, and analysis of college football. I think sometimes we hit it. Other times we're still striving to get there. You can contribute on Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. And those are down in the description sections of any of the videos. I was not able to put a link to 2 of those. I think the only link down there is the PayPal. And then, of course, we've got the Super Chat available here. So thank you so much for that. W.T. Keaton, a 10-game SEC season with only 1 bye is probably more dangerous to players than COVID. I am about 15 minutes behind in the live chat. Hopefully I've not missed anything good. You guys seem to be jumping on George quite a bit here. That's entertaining. Oh, David. I am not going to post that to the screen, but I found that rather amusing. Oh, boy. Okay. Oh, shoot. See, what happens here is I'm scrolling through the comments, and I'm about to post them, and I've got them all lined up in an order, and as soon as somebody else throws in another comment, it jumps, and I completely lose track. So I'm just going to jump in here somewhere. 5% confident. 3 years out of high school. Thank you so much, Jason. I should know that, and I have known that in the past. There's so much information that leaks out of this brain these days. Thank you for the clarification there, Jason. Of course, in college football, not knowing how many years out of high school that a player needs to be eligible for the NFL draft. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
Oh, yeah, good morning in that, but it's Uncle Lou here, though.
Oh, there he is. What's going on?
Yeah, good morning. Hey, you know what? One of the best parts, whenever you get like some sort of crazy situation that's taking place, no matter what it is, one of the best parts is all the weird rumors that start flying around. Have you heard this one? Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, and Nebraska are joining the Big 12 just for this year.
Oh, and so the rest of the Big 10 shut down, and then they go join the Big 12.
The Big 10 and the Pac, the Big 10 and the Pac-12 are shutting down on Tuesday. But Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, and Nebraska are going to join the Big 12, giving them 14 teams for this 1 year.
Wouldn't that be something?
So you'll have the Power 3 this year with all 14 teams. Can't wait to watch that Oklahoma versus Nebraska game. Hey, you know who hates that rumor the most? Oklahoma.
Yeah, I don't think they want any part of that.
Yeah, if they have veto power, they'll use it, won't they?
Yeah, they'll get beat up a little bit if that happens. They're going to have to. That defense isn't going to like that too much.
Yeah. Man, Trevor Lawrence really wants to play this year.
He does. Good for him.
Yeah. Seen all his tweets today?
I just saw the one. I just saw this hashtag come out, this "We Want to Play," and I saw the big push for playing. And man, I tread lightly on this, Lou. You know, because I tread lightly on this whole COVID situation because I know that people are being gravely affected by this out there.
Hey, a guy I've known since I was 7 years old. We played Pee Wee football together. He's my age, 42. His wife died today. We're right here in Augusta from COVID, 42 years old. Trevor Lawrence has actually tweeted more than Donald Trump today. But one of his tweets that keeps getting passed around, and I think even ESPN, like all these big people are picking this up and writing articles about it. But it says, I feel like I'd be safer here if they cancel the season. Then I'll have to go home. I'll be more safe here. Do Clemson players not have to take classes? If they cancel the football season, do these football players know that they're students? I don't understand. There's this whole mantra going around that they're safer at school than they would be at home, and they come from poor environments and all this kind of thing. Are they under some kind of impression that if they cancel football, they don't have to go to class?
I think that's telling us something right there. What the environment's like over there in Clemson in regards to how much time spent playing football versus their studies.
Yeah, I don't understand the whole "we're safer here than we would be at home" thing. They wouldn't be at home, would they? Hey, I've got a daughter in college. I mean, yes, she actually goes to class. The football players at Clemson do take classes, right? Technically, yes. It's yeah. So somebody needs to tell them that if they cancel football, they get to stay in Clemson. They don't have to go home.
You know, if you remember, Lou, at least when I first started watching college football, they would do those hokey lineup introductions where the players would run out in front of the camera and turn around and pose in front of the camera, and then they would list their name and their major. And they probably shut that down at some point because they didn't want to embarrass some of these kids who didn't know maybe what they were actually in school for.
Oh, man, that must have been some of those UNC athletes that were taking that, what was it, African Studies class or whatever that didn't exist.
And based on what I know of that, I have no idea why that didn't blow up into a bigger deal and why the penalties weren't harsher.
Yeah, but look what they did to Mizzou because what happened? A tutor spent too much time tutoring or something.
Sure.
Whatever, and they bowl banned them.
Yeah, that's
North
an awful
Carolina
thing.
had like 25 years worth of athletes who never took classes, and they didn't get any penalty at all.
Yes, that's a horrible thing that we have a tutor that's working too much, that's tutoring these athletes too much. That should be certainly we should.
Must be nice to be North Carolina. I don't know. Anyway, I don't have much to add today. I'm fixing to go back into my closet and cross my fingers again.
Okay, Lou. Maybe you take that's your next video. I think you'd probably get about 20,000 views on that.
Oh, the one from this morning?
No, the one from the closet. The one from the closet. No, the one that you're about to do from the closet.
I'm not videoing myself in there. I'm crossing my fingers and praying to the ghost of Herschel Walker. I know he's still alive, but his mind is gone.
Well,
Talk to you later, Mark.
I think you could go with Vince Dooley, possibly, is what Uncle Lou could go with, the ghost of Vince Dooley. All right. I think we're just about ready to shut it down. If you've listed any comments in the live chat that you would like to get to me, just copy and paste them and throw them in the comment section of any of the videos, and I will get to them as soon as possible. 143 on the line. Thank you so much for joining us. If anybody's been late, which many obviously have been, you just wait for the video to process and post, which should take about 15 minutes. Then you jump on there and watch it. I have had some comments made about the live stream not showing up, the live chat, I should say, the live chat not showing up during the replay. So if you're having issues with that, please let me know. I would like to know, for example, some people comment from time to time that if they hit the bell for the notifications, they're not getting the notifications. Please let me know if that's happening. There's not always something I can do about that, since YouTube and Google is a fickle thing. But I'd like to know if there are issues out there, like not being able to see the live chat during the replay. Tuesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, Florida State Seminoles live. If you want to see a interesting combination discussion, you would see Jason Parker, our Florida State guy, and Cam Underwood from State of the U, Miami. They mixed it up during the final 15 or 20 minutes during our Miami live stream that was posted just a few days ago. So if you're into the amusing combination of Jason Parker and Cam Underwood, you may want to check out that video. Okay, I'm on it when it comes to conference schedules. The SEC and the Pac-12 are coming out soon, and then some individual team breakdowns, top 25 analysis. I'm going to run down these players that have opted out and who may replace them. And a spring football season, will it work? We'll give that a look. And if you've got a half hour and maybe put it on in the background while you're doing something else, I know it's a long, long video, but I have looked at these Pac-12 player demands. That is the most recent video that I posted. And I've got some opinions about their player demands and what may work to resolve a lot of these issues that the players have. They may not necessarily like it, but this would resolve a lot of these issues. Check out the video here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon. MSU #1 fan, let's just have a football season. Let's not be concerned with an 8-team college football playoff or a home-and-home series between Michigan and Michigan State. I did propose that for the Big Ten to look at a home-and-home series, but they have already determined if there is a season that they're playing a 10th conference game. The schedule's been announced, so the schedule's already out there. So there you go. See y'all soon.